What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here with another Week 6 college football preview, man. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you are new. Make sure to like the video and share it, man, wherever y'all want to share it. Appreciate y'all support so much. Pumped for football this weekend, and we got to get to an interesting SEC matchup in Lexington this weekend. And we have a matchup between two programs going into very different directions, and a win either way in this matchup could be huge for each of these programs, and this is going to play a huge role in just terms of how the SEC is going to play out down the stretch, and also potentially on the LSU side could determine which, if that LSU job is available this all season. We got LSU traveling up into Lexington to take on the number 16 Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky is a 3.5 point favorite, and this game is under the lights. Kickoff at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, live on SEC Network, man. And to get to the storylines, there are so many that we could talk about. We start with the Wildcats, man, coming in as the surprise of the SEC this season, 5-0, top 10 rank, a top 10 win last week over the Florida Gators to get them in the top 25, and they have a chance to make another run into the top 10 under Mark Stoops after he did it just a few seasons back. And a win this weekend will put them at 4-0 in SEC play to kick off this 2021 season. And it's been the same formula that we've seen Kentucky have so much success with, and that's run the football and play tough physical defense. And they have done it perfectly this season. On the other side, though, the Tigers come in at 3-2. They had a heartbreaking loss to Auburn. Coach O's seat has been set on fire. Many Tiger fans were very upset last week, and the reports coming out of Baton Rouge are some people are already ready to move on from Coach Ed Orgeron. And so the Tigers come into a must-win situation. Being 3-3 after this week would be the worst case scenario for Coach Ed Orgeron. And on top of that, they've already got heartbreaking news that Derek Stingley had surgery this week and will be out indefinitely and could miss the rest of the season, which means Eli Ricks, Flott, and these other cornerbacks are going to have to step up in the big way down the stretch through SEC play for the Tigers. But Max Johnson and Kayshon Boutte have been one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the country. So that is still what is carrying this LSU team throughout the season. Now, looking at the history of this series, LSU has dominated it, winning 40 games compared to Kentucky's 16 games. They've won the past two matchups, but the last time this game was in Lexington, the Wildcats upset the number one ranked LSU Tigers in an overtime thriller in 2007, where LSU ended up becoming the last. I believe they're one of the only two lost national champions in that BCS era. And as we get to the keys for the game, man, the key for the Wildcats should be clear. Even if you've not watched but a minute of Kentucky football, the key is going to be run the ball, run it again, and run it again until LSU puts 11 in the box and you have to throw it. The DNA of this offense is smash mouth football, and LSU has to stop the run this weekend because Kentucky and Mark Stoops are going to try to run it right down your throat repeatedly until they toss it to Wandale Robinson on the outside on like a jet sweep or a screen, and he's going to try to get over the top. Now, the Wildcats have leaned on this rushing attack. Their O-line's been dominant. They're rushing for almost 200 yards per game. The team as a whole for the season is averaging over 5 yards per carry, and they're averaging almost 2 rushing touchdowns per game. It all starts with Chris Rodriguez, over 600 yards rushing for him, 6 yards per carry, and 5 rushing touchdowns. While Smoke, the backup running back, has a 150 on the ground, a touchdown. He's averaging about 4.5 yards per carry. I think Smoke could be someone to kind of watch for because they have to get fresh bodies against this LSU front seven, which is one of the more talented front sevens in the SEC. Now, What makes this rushing attack so deadly? I was looking at some of the advanced stats on how they ran, where they ran, things like that. It's so deadly because they can run the ball almost anywhere on the field, and it puts pressure on the entire defense to execute consistently because you never know where they're going to attack you. LSU is going to have to step up in this game on the front seven, rushing in the A gap, right behind this, in between the centers and guards on either side. The Kentucky's run for 270, averaging over 6 yards per carry and a rushing touchdown. And off tackle on the outside, they got 260, averaging over 5.5 yards per carry and 4 rushing touchdowns. They can attack you wide, they can attack you up the middle, off tackle. It does not matter. They can get you almost anywhere. Now, this team's going to commit to the run game, and they're going to try to replicate what Auburn did late in the game last week and what UCLA did week one to this LSU defense. They're going to try to wear the defense down and be able to take advantage late. They're going to try to control the clock, and they're going to try to make this game their type of game, which is a nasty, smash mouth, brutal type game, and it's going to be slow, and it's going to just chew the clock and chew the clock, and that's where Kentucky is going to beat you at. So what they did against Florida, they made it a messy game, and Florida wasn't able to score but 13 points and not escape with a win. Now, Will Levis is kind of an X factor this weekend, though, because he's going to have to play better than he did last week against the Gators. He's going to have to be a playmaker while avoiding turnovers, which has been an issue for him this year at times. Only 61% completion percentage, almost 1,000 yards passing, 8 passing touchdowns, but 6 interceptions for Levis. He has to improve his deep ball accuracy. 31% completion percentage, 3 picks on passes 20 plus yards down the field. He has to be more consistent there. But avoiding turnovers is the number one thing this weekend. And the best strategy, really, based on what he's done this year, is to keep it short, throw underneath, and let his playmakers get out in space and go make plays for him against this LSU secondary, missing arguably their best player in Derek Stingley. Now, over 50%, over 57% of the passes from Levis are either behind the line of scrimmage or less than 9 yards down the field. But the wide receivers for Kentucky have done an excellent job in making plays for their quarterback. And it all starts with Wan'Dale Robinson and Josh Alley. They've combined for 46 catches, guys. No other Kentucky wide receiver has over 5. That's how explosive and dynamic these guys are. Robinson, 29 catches, 467, over 16 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns. For me, I did an episode on this on our 2-minute drill when this transfer happened. For me, this was one of the most overlooked transfers in the country, and he might be the most versatile weapon in the SEC and how Kentucky can use Wan'Dale Robinson. He's got a 94.2 receiving grade on catches beyond 20 plus yards down the field, and also a 90.9 in passes behind the line of scrimmage. And he's averaging 12 yards of after catch yardage on passes caught behind the line of scrimmage. That means he can take a pass behind the line of scrimmage. He can take these short dump off passes, make guys miss in space, and go make a play for Levis at quarterback. Ali's 17 catches, 248, and a touchdown. He's kind of the guy that they rely over the middle, and he's almost like the safety net for Levis. These two guys have to be explosive because they are going to have to put points on the board and be more dynamic through the air in this game. Now, the key for the Tigers, for me, should also be obvious. This LSU offense has a clear strength, and that's the passing game with Max Johnson and Kayshon Boutte. They're averaging over 300 yards per game through the air, and they're not doing it on the ground as well. And the best athletes for the Tigers right now are at the wide receiving spot. And Max Johnson has played excellent this season, man. Especially when you look at he's not getting much help from the run game and the offensive line at times. He's just going out there and making plays. Over 62% completion percentage for almost 1,500 yards, guys. 16 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And the number one thing for Johnson is whether the offensive line can protect him. He's a completely different quarterback under pressure, and that's going to be a key for LSU this weekend is to keep Johnson clean in the pocket. Under pressure, he's only completing 36% of his passes for 300 yards. His average yards per attempt dropped to 6, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. And he has a 29.6 passing grade when he's under pressure, and that's been on about 32% of his throws this season. And Johnson is going to have to make plays this weekend. He's going to have to avoid turnovers, and he's going to have to get the ball to his playmakers on the outside. Now, the wide receiving core has been extremely productive for LSU. And outside of the first quarter last week, they abandoned this strategy of getting the ball to their playmakers, and it led them right down the field on their first drive when Kayshon Boutte and Max Johnson absolutely exploded against this Auburn defense. For me, Kayshon Boutte should get no less than 7 to 12 catches per game. That's the type of game changer. Give him the football and let him go do work. He was carrying this offense last week, and then they abandoned him till it was too late in the game to really recover. 30 catches, 435 yards, and nine receiving touchdowns in only 5 games. Jack Besh, Deion Smith, Brian Thomas Jr. Are some other guys that are going to have to step up in a big way. And someone's going to have to try to be as explosive or offer some other explosive option for Max Johnson in this passing attack. Those are the guys I'm looking forward to step up. They're younger guys, but they've been playmakers all season for LSU. They just have to come big time this weekend. The matchup to watch is so hard. I almost went with LSU's wide receivers against Kentucky's defensive backs, but for me, the more important one is LSU's O-line versus this Kentucky D-line for a few reasons. One, the Tigers have to try to figure out some sort of rushing attack this weekend. They cannot, as much as the key is to let Max Johnson cook because that's probably going to win you the game, they're going to have to run the ball a little bit because what you can't do is allow Kentucky to go on these, 6, 7, 8, 9 minute drives all the way down the field, running the ball, chewing the clock. And then what that's going to do is put pressure on your offense to score on the limited possessions they have. You're going to have to work your pace a little bit and allow your defense to rest, because if they're allowed to establish their rhythm and their pace, they're going to wear that defensive front for the Tigers down. And then also, I've already mentioned this, you've got to protect Max Johnson because his ability to be a distributor and be a good quarterback relies on being clean and not under pressure in that backfield. The offensive line, as much as has failed to pave the way for the rushing attack this year, they're only averaging about 70 yards running per game right now. It has shown some promise at pass protection, but it's got to be more consistent. In the first half, they were fine against Auburn, but deep down the stretch of that game, Auburn was able to get to Max Johnson. LSU's O-line has to be more consistent down the stretch. I know they had some guys banged up late in that game. They got to play better this weekend. They've allowed 6 sacks, 29 hurries, and 43 pressures over the first 5 games of the season. And the biggest point of weakness is that left tackle spot. They listed 3 different guys that could possibly be the starter coming into last week's game. Cameron Wire, Xavier Hill, and Grant Dellinger all were listed as and/or starters for that left tackle spot. But Leo Shanahan and Ed Ingram have been the only offensive linemen to start all 5 games, and they've by far been the most consistent offensive lineman on that Tigers front. Now, the Kentucky defensive front has been solid against the run, only allowing about 100 yards rushing per game and holding opponents to 3.3 yards per carry. They got 9 sacks, 46 pressures over their first 5 games. If they can make LSU one-dimensional and stop the run with 3-4 on the defensive line and drop a bunch of people into coverage, that's going to be huge for how they can defend this LSU offense, because they're going to, if they can slow down Max Johnson, then LSU can't run. That's going to be the key for Kentucky to win this game. And also, if you can get to Max Johnson, that gives you a huge advantage. And the lucky part is the tackles are kind of the weak spots for LSU. And Kentucky, their strength is the edge positions of their defense. Josh Pascal and J.J. Weaver are ballers, and they are the top pass rushers for the Wildcats. Pascal, 2 sacks, 17 pressures. Man, this guy is always in the backfield and 6 tackles for loss, while Weaver has 4 sacks and 6.5 tackles for loss. The question marks for me, though, can Marquand McCall and Josiah Hayes on the inside going to be guys that you can depend on to get a pass rush and win the interior line of scrimmage battle between those centers and guards for the Tigers? That's going to be where the game is won. If you can get pressure up the middle on Johnson and make him roll out into those DNs, that's going to be a key. And also stopping that interior run game is going to be huge for Kentucky. Now, I had kind of a struggle time picking this game because I think the LSU offense is going to offer a much bigger threat to Kentucky than Florida did last week. I think Max Johnson and Keyshawn Boutte are going to give Kentucky something they haven't seen this year for the most part, which is going to offer them a tough challenge. But at the same time, I don't know if I trust LSU to stop this offense and not have to play Kentucky's game. And for me, I just don't see Kentucky coming off of a top 10 win, playing at home. LSU's in all this turmoil. Coach O's on the hot seat. There's players banged up, injury problems. I just think Kentucky right now has all the momentum, the home field advantage, and Mark Stoops can win this game for me. And I just trust that Kentucky is going to be able to have one last drive, control the clock, and run the football to win the game. I have the Wildcats 27-21 over the LSU Tigers. So a 6-point win for the Wildcats, which is covering that 3.5-point spread. But I think it's going to be close. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU takes an early lead because those first few drives for LSU are always solid. They can go out and score early in games. I just think Kentucky is going to be able to wear down that defense with the run game and the physical nature of their offense. So, guys, comment your score predictions below. Comment your thoughts and takeaways on this huge SEC matchup in Lexington. But I got the Wildcats 27, the Tigers 21 this weekend in Lexington. Appreciate y'all support. Smash the subscribe button. Like the video now. We'll be back with more previews later this afternoon. Also, go check out our Week 6 content playlist. For all our Week 6 content right here on the Bluebloods there's a playlist right on our homepage. Make sure to click that, and it'll be at the end of this video. But guys, the Bluebloods right now are out.